Now, for 4 months, their tents and banners outside St Paul's were a physical reminder of the many who blamed banks and corporate greed for the financial crisis. The Occupy camp in London was just one of many around the world which sprang up in protest against capitalism. But 12 months after bailiffs and the police evicted the activists, do they have any lasting impact? Liz McKean went to meet 2 former residents of the camp who are trying to keep the spirit of the protest alive.
An old factory in East London, disused but not abandoned. Far from it, it now houses 13 otherwise homeless young people. They've turned it over to assorted artists and performers to use as a rehearsal space.
This is the big society in action. Local DIY solutions to the housing crisis.
This conviction that things must be done differently also lay behind Occupy's encampment outside St Paul's Cathedral last year. Thousands came together representing the 99% who they claim were discarded by a minuscule elite. In cities around the world, the camps were eventually cleared away. Even some on the opposite side of Occupy's political position concede that they had qualified success.
They asked good questions about why taxpayers' money was being used to bail out big businesses. But in the end, instead of focusing on government, the source of that money and the source of those bailouts, they focused on the people who got the money. That was the mistake. If they had more focus and if they had looked at government as the root of the problem, then I think they might have had a lasting achievement.
But their message that economies, politics, society itself must be reordered is being kept alive through the medium of poetry.
Now a pandemic of tented towns, dome tent cities pop up like frog spawn, mini tax havens for the super poor, prime real estate for insurrection, emergency housing for the desperate and indignant.
We all have a voice, we're all spoken word artists, and empowering people with the power to speak articulately about the world around them is massively important for a healthy and engaged citizenry, I think.
Now is the winter of ours.
We've met 2 veterans of the St Paul's encampment who write and perform their poems, driven, they say, not by idealism but practicality, how best to get things done.
Okay, yeah, so this is the back door around here. Mind the muds.
The warehouse squatters say they're here with the owner's consent and they'll move on when asked.
So there's a big space here. This was left empty until we got here. And,
taking over abandoned buildings is both a political and practical tactic. They're opposed to last year's law which makes squatting in residential property illegal. And they believe taking over empty commercial property is justified.
If I was doing anybody any harm, I would stop squatting. I've lived in 5 different buildings. They've all been owned by individuals and companies that have been keeping them empty for between 5 and 20 years. I've lived with people who have been fleeing domestic violence. I've lived with people who otherwise would have been living on the streets.
The recent rescue of a library in North London is, say campaigners, proof that their approach can make a positive difference. When the Free and Barnet Library was closed after 78 years, a few of them moved in, called it home and kept it open.
When did your bank last decline you? When did you last feel secure? I create my own security by using up what's empty. I'm not
The performance poets found a receptive audience. A strong local campaign against council cutbacks had been making little headway, and the community, if not the council, welcomed the squatters.
It looked like it was all over. Suddenly the Occupy movement turned up, and at first I think we were nervous. We thought if we came in, could we be sued for trespassing? But then when Barnet Council started having meetings here with the community and with the Occupy movement, we felt emboldened to come in, and then the community poured in these wonderful books and have made it this wonderful community space.
Get up, stand up, coming through. Save the libraries. Get up, stand up.
After 5 months of occupation, Free and Barnet got its library back.
Here we go.
The squatters handed over the keys to local residents who'll run the library using a grant from the council.
In the face of these really draconian cuts that are being carried out throughout the country, we can actually have an effect.
To those involved, this was a symbolic as well as practical event.
I think that individuals need to feel empowered and they need to be able to come together as a community in order to achieve something greater than themselves, and that art is a wonderful way to bring people together. And with poetry, it's such a direct medium that you're putting the words together, and a lot of times people say, oh, I really wanted to say that, that's exactly what I wanted to say, and you took the words right out of my mouth. Jesus was born in an empty building. Imagine they wouldn't let Mary in.
There's an urgency about performance poets like Kat.
Child exile in Egypt, if he had claimed, would we accept it?
And a prescriptiveness, a view that time to make a difference is running out, and that the cause is just.
He wasn't always popular. He'd help a stranger. I think Jesus was a protester.